Hello. Gotta do the news. The news. Wow, it's saying wow.
Oh, so it's got a mass area system.
Mass area system. People say. All right. Rewind.
In self-defense after she bent heat.
You're listening to SBS News.
G'day from the SBS newsroom. A federal royal commission announced into the Bondi attack. Elevated fire danger around the country with a scorching day predicted. And in cricket, Steve Smith praises Australia's mentality after the dominant Asian series. I'm Peggy Giacomellos. Let's start with Australian news. And the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, has announced a year-long federal royal commission into the Bondi terror attack. Former High Court Judge Virginia Bell will lead the inquiry and has been tasked with examining the nature and prevalence of anti-Semitism and religiously motivated extremism. She's been empowered to make any other recommendations needed to strengthen Australia's social cohesion. The announcement follows weeks of political pressure from Jewish groups, business leaders, sporting greats, and the federal opposition calling for a federal royal commission. Mr Albanese says he has made his decision after further reflection following meetings with survivors of the Bondi attack and the families of victims.
We've engaged respectfully with people, and we've made sure, I think, that we've done this in a way which has got it right. We listen to people. I think that's what people want. You know, the nation needs to come together.
He says the final report of the Royal Commission will be due on the first anniversary of the Bondi attack. And the New South Wales government says it won't proceed with a state-based Royal Commission into the Bondi attack after Mr Albanese announced the federal-level investigation. In a statement, New South Wales Premier Chris Minns says the state government welcomed the decision and will cooperate with the federal Royal Commission. Total fire bans are in place for large parts of Victoria, New South Wales and South Australia, with authorities in other states warning that a total fire ban could be declared at any time. Much of Australia is experiencing an extreme heat wave that is forecast to continue over the weekend. Temperatures in some areas have soared above 40 degrees Celsius, elevating the fire risk and prompting warnings for people to take steps to prevent heat-related deaths. A catastrophic fire danger rating is in place for Victoria's Northern Country, North Central and Wimmera districts. In South Australia, the state's Country Fire Service says the fire danger risks means total fire bans are in place in 11 out of 15 fire districts. Let's head overseas now. And in the United States, protesters have clashed with law enforcement in the city of Minneapolis the day after a woman was killed by Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents. The US Department of Homeland Security claims 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good was shot dead by an agent of the agency known as ICE in self-defense after she tried to hit officers with her car. Local officials dispute that. In an at times profane response, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey has demanded all ICE agents leave the city, but the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security says the situation shows the entire state of Minnesota, of which Minneapolis is the capital, has deteriorated rapidly under opponents of the Trump administration.
Minnesota is a train wreck. It is corrupt, and it was under the leadership of Governor Walz and this mayor that they allowed it to happen, and they let criminals and illegals and people abuse programs and steal the money, and now they're allowing violence to go forward on the streets as well.
There have also been anti-ICE protests in Chicago and New York following the shooting. And still in overseas news, and United States Vice President J.D. Vance says Denmark has not done a proper job in securing Greenland, and that President Donald Trump is willing to go as far as he has to defend American interests in the Arctic. Mr. Vance's comments came after Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the Trump administration's intention is to eventually purchase Greenland as opposed to using military force. In an interview with Fox News, Mr. Vance has repeated Mr. Trump's claims about the importance of Greenland.
Greenland is critical, not just to our national security, but to the world's national security. People don't realize this. The entire missile defense infrastructure is partially dependent on Greenland. If, God forbid, the Russians or the Chinese, not saying they're going to, but if, God forbid, in the future, somebody launched a nuclear missile into our continent, they launched a nuclear missile at Europe, Greenland is a critical part of that missile defence.
To sport, and in cricket, Australia has achieved a 4-1 Ashes series win, beating England in the last test by 5 wickets on day 5 at the SCG. It's the 4th straight Ashes series in Australia where the hosts have won at least 4 tests. Travis Head was named the player of the match after scoring his 4th century of the series in the first innings. The retiring Usman Khawaja managed just 6 in his final test innings, but left the stadium to a standing ovation from the home crowd. I'm Peggy Giacomellos. This is SBS News.
In this bulletin, Anthony Albanese poised to announce Commonwealth Royal Commission after weeks of
Yeah. Where were we? We were close to the top. Can't see it. Too big. I'll do this one.
The Supreme Leader signals a crackdown on escalating protests. And in tennis, Nick Kyrgios says he's not up to playing singles at the Australian Open. With the latest from the SBS Newsroom, I'm Angelica Waite. Fire authorities in Victoria say an out-of-control bushfire at Longwood in the central region of the state is spreading, as multiple emergency bushfires are burning across Victoria. At least 20 properties have been destroyed in the nearby town of Ruffy, and 3 people, 2 adults and a child, remain unaccounted for in Longwood East. Premier Jacinta Allen has declared a state of disaster in 18 local government areas and the Lake Alpine Mountain Resort, saying those who have been advised to leave must follow advice if they can. Firefighters are battling some 60 fires in the state, including 19 fires at emergency warnings, with some 50,000 hectares of bushland burnt. Victorians across the state have been urged to monitor conditions throughout the weekend and keep up to date with the Emergency Victoria website. A total fire ban has been issued for large parts of New South Wales as extreme weather conditions sweep across the state. The ban will be in place in the Greater Hunter, Central Ranges, Greater Sydney, Illawarra Shoalhaven, Southern Ranges, Southern Slopes, Monaro Alpine and Far South Coast. Most of the state will be in extreme and high fire conditions, and Sydney is forecast to reach 42 degrees Celsius on Saturday, which would be its hottest day in 6 years. Emergency Services Minister Christy McBain says a total fire ban has also been declared in the ACT.
This is the first time in a long time that there will be a total fire ban in the ACT. There will be a range of total fire bans across southern New South Wales as well. This event, obviously in Victoria, and what we will experience in New South Wales and the ACT, comes 6 years after the Black Summer bushfires. So there are many community members out there who were in the impacted area last time that will be in this range of concern. So our thoughts are with all of those communities.
Iran's Supreme Leader has vowed he will not back down in the face of growing nationwide protests over economic conditions, and has signalled a harsher crackdown is coming. Thousands of protesters are continuing to march through the streets after the Iranian government cut the nation off from the internet and international calls. Videos shared online by activists show protesters chanting against Iran's government in the streets of Tehran and other areas. Rights groups have documented dozens of deaths of protesters in nearly 2 weeks. Spokesperson for the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Jeremy Lawrence, has urged de-escalation and compliance with international law.
The right to peaceful protest, as enshrined in international law, must be protected. All deaths should be promptly, independently and transparently investigated. Those responsible for any violations must be held to account in line with international norms and standards.
Tensions are mounting in the US after the second shooting involving federal immigration officers in 2 days, with deepening rifts between state and federal officials over how and why the shootings occurred. Protests broke out in Minnesota after ICE agents fatally shot a 37-year-old woman, with local and US officials offering starkly different accounts of the shooting. The next day, a US Border Patrol agent shot and wounded 2 people in Portland, with federal officials claiming the driver tried to run over agents. Portland Mayor Keith Wilson says the federal government can no longer be trusted to tell the truth.
We know what the federal government says happened here. There was a time when we could take them at their word. That time is long past. That is why we are calling on ICE to halt all operations in Portland until a full and independent investigation can take place. Our community deserves answers. Our community deserves accountability. And most of all, our community deserves peace.
To sport now, and in tennis, Nick Kyrgios has conceded he's not up to playing singles at the Australian Open, ruling himself out of a likely wildcard with 3 other veterans getting a start. The local crowd puller was tipped to receive one of the 3 remaining wildcards from Tennis Australia. But he's announced on social media he would only play doubles with Thanasi Kokkinakis at Melbourne Park, with the tournament getting underway on January the 18th. Multiple wrist and knee surgeries have limited Kyrgios to just 7 singles tour matches over the past 3 years, with his ranking plummeting to 670. Kyrgios said his body wasn't yet ready for 5-set tennis and wanted the wildcard to go to someone who could make their moment count. That's the latest from the SBS Newsroom. I'm Angelica Wade.
In this bulletin, Queenslanders brace for a Category 2 cyclone after weeks of heavy rain. Fires continue to rage across Victoria and New South Wales as a heat wave reaches peak temperatures. And in football, Wrexham stun English Premier League side Nottingham Forest in an FA Cup upset. With the latest from the SBS Newsroom, I'm Sunil Awasthi. Severe flooding and a tropical cyclone are expected to pose fresh threats to Queensland's already hard-hit far north. The Bureau of Meteorology says tropical low 12U, positioned east of Cooktown, is likely to develop into a Category 2 cyclone. If that happens, Cyclone Koji would likely make landfall just south of Townsville early tomorrow morning. With it would come damaging winds of up to 100 kilometres per hour, heavy downfalls in already soaked catchment areas, and a risk of flash floods. However, Queensland Premier David Crisafulli is adamant the state is better prepared than ever to handle the challenge.
If there is a heavy rainfall event and if there is flooding, we have to be able to switch quickly from response to recovery. But our major priority right now is for people to prepare, take that remaining window to do so, and I have every faith in the ability of North Queenslanders to be able to handle events like this as they so often do.
At least 130 structures, including homes and schools, have been lost, and around 38,000 properties are without electricity across Victoria as out-of-control bushfires continue to wreak havoc. Victorian Premier Jacinta Allen has declared a state of disaster as over 300,000 hectares have been burnt by 36 separate fires. 14 emergency warnings remain active, with major fires raging in Longwood, Otway and Walwar. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says it's crucial Victorians follow the advice of emergency services.
There are multiple dangerous bushfires burning across Victoria, some of which pose a threat to life and property, and the situation is far from over, and a massive firefighting effort is underway as we speak. This is a crucial time for Victorians. for them to listen to the advice of emergency services and being ready to enact emergency plans.
In New South Wales, more than 40 fires are burning across the state, with heatwave temperatures exceeding 40 degrees Celsius across Sydney. While nearly all fires are under control, one out-of-control blaze is raging in northern Sydney's Ku-ring-gai National Park, as temperatures are expected to peak at 43 degrees. The extent of the fire is still to be determined, but the Rural Fire Service has issued a watch and act warning for residents in and around the suburb of Mount Colah. RFS firefighters have also managed to bring a fast-moving fire at Goombargana under control after it spread across farmland, burning more than 1,020 hectares. Federal opposition leader Susan Lee is praising the efforts of communities and New South Wales firefighters in the circumstances.
The Australian landscape is extraordinary, but it is unforgiving. When the weather is at its worst, Australians are at their best. And our volunteer fire service